Yeah.
Well, Nick, why don't you start out by sharing a little bit about your background and then jump into your presentation.
Okay. So my background is I've been in software for 12 years now. I started with Populi in 2008 when Populi was just a startup. And Populi itself started with 2 client schools. We now have 530 client schools around the world that are using Populi. We have a lot of tracks, ABHE, ATS, WASC, SOC, lots of different schools from a lot of different accrediting bodies. And my background originally was I had attended seminary in Texas and was headed to be a pastor when God changed directions on me. And I ended up going to China, well, back to China as a missionary for a little while, and then came back to the States, and I was a public high school teacher. And then my brother-in-law presented me with this opportunity, knowing I wanted to get out of the public schools. He presented me with this opportunity to be part of this software company. And I was one of the first guys in the door with Populi, kind of part of the whole startup thing. And 12 years later on, I can't really call us a startup anymore. We've done quite well, Populi has. But I've seen a lot of softwares come and go. I've worked with a lot of presidents, vice presidents, CTOs, CDOs, CEOs, other people as they look to change up what they're doing with data management for their school, as they look to change systems and so on. So that's kind of my background and where I've come from. Now, my presentation today is really simple. It's going to really involve just answering for you as a school, answering 5 questions. And so I'm not going to throw up some kind of a fancy presentation or PowerPoint or anything like that. I'm just going to tell you, here's the 5 things. Here's a handful of things that you really have to look for when you're considering changing data management systems for your school. So first thing that we look for when we're looking at other softwares for working in our business or others is we go in and we look at their website and we say, do they show their pricing up front? Do I have to go dig around? Do I have to go jump through hoops? Because that, at least in the data management side of things, if you're having to do that, that probably means that this company is going to charge various fees for various different types of pieces of work that they do. They're going to do things piecemeal, and you're going to be having to always keep account of how much things cost on admissions for your transcript production, for doing an application. And so some people will call that being nickeled and dimed. Other people will say, well, that's just the cost of doing business. But that's one thing that I would look for up front as we look at a lot of different companies is, especially when it comes to data management for the larger school, do they actually show you, do they actually come out and give you their pricing on the website, or do you have to call a sales guy? Do you have to call the company? Do you have to give them all this information? It was one of our biggest frustrations back in 2008 and 2009, 12 years ago, was that 99% of the companies that we would try to work with, they wouldn't give us a price until we actually decided to give them our firstborn child or something. It was really kind of silly, the hoops we had to jump through just to get a pricing for even doing using like a support software or things like that. So the having the pricing up front is a really good indication of just transparency of working with the business. Now, it's not always true, but it's definitely a good indicator of how transparent they're going to be in working with you. So that would be one thing, is do they actually come out and list their pricing? So that's number one. Number two, when you actually start delving into the system, can you get access to a demo site without you having to see a webinar or talk to a sales guy? Now, getting access to a demo site, period, is probably one of the most important things you can do. Now, what a lot of big schools will do is they'll say, well, we need to complete an RFP. So they'll build out this RFP, they'll send it out to all the software companies, request for proposal, tell us all the different stuff you can do. And it's kind of like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Every software is a little different. Every school manages their data a little bit differently. And the only way that you're really going to know if it's a good fit for you, is if someone from your school who knows your data, knows your processes, can get into their software site and into a demo site of theirs and can dig around and say, yeah, this is going to work, or we're going to have to do workarounds, or we're going to need to customize this. But the demo site, having access to a demo site is very important. If a software company that you're talking to says, well, we don't have a demo site, that should be a red flag right there. I'm not saying they're hiding things, but it may be that they're just not developed enough. They haven't gotten far enough down the road in terms of their product to really have something like that. But the demo site, that's a very important thing. Okay, so whether they want you to talk to a sales guy or do a webinar with the salesperson or not, is really, that's part of it. But the bigger issue is do they have that demo site? So again, number one, look and see if they have the pricing and see if it's up front. Are you gonna have to dig around? Are they transparent about that? Number two, the demo site. Can you get access to a demo site? Do you have to go through a sales guy to get to one? I mean, really the bottom line is, do they have that demo site, whether you go through a sales guy or not? But that would be number two. So number one and number two. And then number three is, what is their support like? And that's hard to figure out really when you're first just looking at a software, because you're just trying it out. You haven't been 6 months to 2 years in and know that they don't reply quickly, or they only respond to certain times of the day or things like that. So it's really kind of hard to know how good their support is. However, one of the indicators that you can use to figure out if support is good or not is simply to get references. Talk to their sales guy, their account manager, their business development person, whoever it is that you're working with, and say, hey, can you give me a number of references that I can talk to? Schools that are similar to your size, similar to your mission, and then really figure out from those references, what's their support like? Because if you want your staff to be happy, support is really number one. The layout of the system, the bells and whistles, those are all good things. Those are all things that you want to consider. Does it do LMS? Does it do SIS? Does it do admissions? Does it do donations? Does it do texting and email? Does it do custom transcripts? Those are all checklist things that you can check off really well. But and how people interact with those, your staff will adjust to those things as you bring them on board with a new software. But the one thing that's really hard to adjust to is sloppy, poor, unresponsive support. If you don't want to have a coup d'etat on your hands, make sure that the support side is something that you've investigated and that you know is going to be helpful to you. Okay, so that's number three, is support. Give me a second for a drink here. All right, number four. The number four thing that I would tell you to investigate fairly thoroughly is data migration. If you have a current database, can the software you're moving from do data migration? And they should. Most software is worth their chops. Any 2.0 software, any modern software should be able to do a data migration for you. That's the first thing. That's the bottom line. Is a decent software should be able to do data migration for you from a actual database. So if all you have is Word documents and Excel files, that's really up to the company that you're working with, because those are typically not very easily migratable. But again, data migration is a big deal. And then it's also not just data migration to the new software, it's also from the old software. Now, what we've run into as a company, and I'll just talk to you about Populi's experience, I can't tell you what other people have experienced, but there are 2 or 3 other software companies out there that will de facto hold your data hostage unless you pay them like a transference fee, a migration fee, and I won't name any names, but there are softwares that do that. And so one of the things that you want to look into as you think about data migration is you really need to think hard and ask questions about, is the data ours? Or when we sign on the dotted line, according to your terms of service, does the data somehow become yours? Or is it in your terms of service, do you have something written in there that holds the data unless we pay you a certain amount or something like that? This kind of goes back up to the first point about the pricing on the website. When you go and dig into the pricing, make sure you're looking into the details of the pricing. That might be one of the pieces of the pricing that you really need to consider is, oh, they have a fee that if we ever want to get a backup of our database, they're going to charge us X amount of dollars. Because typically when a school gets a backup, they're often looking to move, and the software company knows they might be losing a client, and so they're concerned about that, and they want to make some money before you leave. And so that's something to really consider thoroughly is there pricing regarding data migration? Are they going to charge us to get our data back from them? Are they going to charge us for backups? Some of our schools want backups all the time, and so we send them backups on a regular basis. And so Populi will do that, and we don't charge anything extra for it. But it really just depends on your school. It depends on your chief technical officer. How do they want to do things? But again, data migration, number 4, that's a big one. And there's often prices connected to the data migration. Now, number 5, the last big thing that I tell people to look for is, does the software have an API? So the API, it's a fancy word for a software bridge, I guess is the best analogy. Some APIs are one directional, and that means that you can pull data out of their software, but data can't be pushed back in. So the bridge is one way. The traffic's only flowing outbound. And so you're pulling data like maybe you're pulling students' addresses into a constant contact type software from your current software database. And so that would be a one-way data transference. What you really want to have for an API is a two-way API. So the bridge goes both directions. And so, for example, Populi has connections built with many different softwares like Zoho, HubSpot, Salesforce, Canvas, Zoom. There's a number of different integrations we have, and a number of those are built on APIs. And so you have data that flows out of the system into that other software automatically on a regular basis, once a night, once a week, once a month, or something like that. And then there's data that flows in from that other software. And that is, could be data like they're pushing in data from HubSpot because they're using HubSpot or Salesforce or Zoho as their CRM. And so they're using that for applications instead of the current software. And so you got to push that back in to your software. And so your chief technical officer should know what an API is. They should know how to manage one of those. But an API is most simply put, it's a bridge, but it's a tool that a company gives to you to allow you to connect with these other softwares that are out there. Now, those are the 5 big things that I tell people to look for. Is I say, look at pricing on the website. Do they have a demo site? What's their support like? Can I get references? Data migration, how do they deal with data migration? And then do they have an API? So those are kind of the big ticket items that I would say as a president, as a decision maker, if I'm looking at a software, if I'm trying to figure out what's best for my school, it's those 5 things that are going to give me an indication of what the company's like, how they do business. I mean, getting a whole references, that's such a big deal. If you're an ATS school, or if you're a track school, if you're an ABHE school, or if you're looking for accreditation in a certain body, you might go to that body and say, hey, what softwares are you guys using and what's working well for you? Many of our clients have come to us by word of mouth from other clients within that accrediting body and saying, hey, we really like working with Populi because they fit with our type of school. So if you're on this call and you are a vocational clock hour school working with a vocational type accrediting body, well, then you're going to want to go to one of their forums. You're going to want to go talk to the accrediting body itself and say, hey, what are people using? Because the one we have right now, it's not working, or we're just using Excel and Word documents. And obviously, if we want to get accredited, we got to get up to speed and have a real system. What are you using? And so really take a lot of advice from other people within the accrediting body. listen in their user forums, in their chat rooms. They'll have different people talking about these things. That's another big one, is just go talk to the people who are using it within the accrediting bodies that you're part of. Now that's kind of my talk. That's what I wanted to present in terms of what you should be looking for. Josh, did you want to chime in and ask any questions? Do other people want to ask questions? What's the next thing here?
Sure, and you guys, if you'll put your questions in there, that'd be great. Let me speak up here a little bit on a couple points that you made. Just so you know, there is no financial arrangement between Nick and I on on anything. But a number of our clients use Populi, and the things that he is talking about, I can speak to. For example, their level of support is extremely well. That's one of the things that when schools are looking for, and we're platform independent, so it's not as if they have to go on Populi from our stuff. But when they're looking for someone that has both an SIS and an LMS, that we talk to them about Populi and say, hey, they're very good at taking care of the customers, making sure that the support is there. I've even heard very positive comments about their support notes and how interesting they are and fun that they are. They keep the client happy, and even in the support notes. So that's really good. And the demo site piece is a big deal. I've got demo sites for Moodle, for Populi, for Canvas, and I did have one for Advanced 360. I think I still have that one. But there are some that wanted me, just for me going and showing this to my clients, wanted to charge me to have a sandbox environment to show what our stuff looks like in theirs and show it off. So making sure that you have the ability to test it out is very, very important. So those are really good points. Any questions from the crew here? Anyone using Populi that's in the call today? See, Tom Griffin says, from your expertise, are you seeing Chief Technical Officer? My perception is that many of the clients are very weak in this area and have not elevated a person to fulfill this role with expertise, but have given the duties to a prior unqualified individual. How's your experience been like that in that area, Nick?
But he's right. In the small schools, you typically don't have someone who's got a lot of programming software background. You're typically getting somebody who's been good with data. I often run into a CTO as someone who was an accountant. They were good with data. They were good with numbers. They were good with managing different flows of data. And so the president said, hey, you're going to be our chief technical officer. And they said, they got a little scared there. And to reflect on that, the softwares that we have now in 2020, they should be manageable enough that you don't have to have a programming background to use them. We're at the level now where you get onto Facebook, you get onto Google, you get onto these major softwares, and you don't have to know C++, you don't have to know MySQL, you don't have to know PHP or any of these programming languages. I'm speaking Chinese right now, right? And so you don't have to know how to speak Chinese. You shouldn't have to. And if a system says, well, we've got to have somebody on your side who knows how to build patches, that should be a red flag right there. They should be able to do that for you. Software as a service, essentially when you get a software like Populi or others that are in this market, they become your CTO in one sense. So you're going to have, as a president, you're going to have this high level view. You're going to take that accountant person, or it could be your admissions director, it could have been your registrar, and then they're going to go in and they're going to start setting up all these different pieces in there. But they should never be expected by any modern software worth its salt. They should never be expected to be a programmer. Is that helpful?
That's very good. Good information. Let's see. Tom follows up. Since leadership is key to project success and leadership from the top is a key success factor, how do we go about getting senior management buy-in and not have potentially unsatisfied users? then the result is change requests and project extending in timeline and cost.
Yeah. Well, I think the key part of this is that when you start with a new software and you want buy-in, you really got to go to your admissions and your registrar's office and start there. Those two people or those two departments, those two groups are going to be key. And so as a president, when you make this decision, you say, hey, we're going with this software, and then you turn it over to them and you turn it over to the software company and you say, look, I need these people trained. I need these people brought in. So part of customer support isn't just answering questions. It's how willing is the company to do training with you, to meet online and do webinars, to go to you and do trainings, to, you know, how much phone support do they have? Do they have tutorials for you? Do they have videos for you? You know, because every registrar and admissions person is different. Some people learn very kinesthetically. They need to get their hands in there and do it. Some people are very much auditory and they go, okay, just give me this video and let me walk through it. I don't want to talk to you, Nick. I just want to go through the video. Some people need a step-by-step process. And so a good software should provide you with a variety of means by which to train your staff. Because again, you know, if the registrar ain't happy and your admissions director ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Kind of like if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Okay, so those two groups have to be really happy with the software you pick. And so getting buy-in from those two groups, maybe you're the kind of top-down, you know, administrator and decision maker where you make the decision without really consulting them too much, and that's fine. But they've got to feel like they've got some sort of say in how it's set up, and they've got to have some sort of say in how they get trained. And they've got to feel like I'm not just been thrown onto a desert island to survive. There's got to be ships coming and going. There's got to be a dock. There's got to be, you know, a phone. I've got to be able to call. I've got to be able to, they got to know that they've got that support so that they really get trained up well. So no matter who you choose, whether it's Populi or someone else, make sure that support on the front end is almost too much, if that makes sense. And that'll help get you buy-in.
And Tom says, great points. I had not considered the buy-in from the primary key constituents. So that's great information. Eric Ireland from Kingswood says, we are a Populi school and find that it serves our SIS functions very well.
Oh, good. So, thank you, Eric. Good to hear. One of the things, you know, this is a Populi little thing
plug,
here, little spiel on us that I like to push. I really think our support is our number one feature. I know you mentioned it, Eric, or Josh, but it's really something that, you know, coming into Populi in 2008, our CEO, that was his focus in the previous company he was with. We're very responsive. We get back to you quickly, whether you call us or email us. We have a lot of training, different pieces to our training as well. But I think our support is our best feature. And when you're looking at a software, every software is different. Everyone manages data differently. You know, if I go from Facebook to Google to Gmail to Microsoft Teams to Zoom, everybody has a little different twist on how they do things. And so you just got to know that, well, I'm used to doing it the Microsoft way. Now I'm doing it the Apple way. Can you help me adjust? And that's really the bottom line, is that they have a support team that's going to help you adjust to that. And that's really part of the buy-in too. Tim was talking about is like, you know, I can't get buy-in if I can't get someone who I know is going to help me bridge that gap between the old software and the new software. And that's where the support comes in to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I hope this doesn't open a can of worms for you, but what I've heard from my clients is that you really listen to them as far as their needs. So you're not just a company that says, well, here's what we have, take it or leave it. When they're asking for improvements, it's not like you're going to be able to do everything that is asked of you, but you're listening to go, okay, that's a good idea. We'll work on that. We'll work to add that in. And I've heard that from not just one client, from several of our clients going, yeah, we've been talking about this with Populi, and they're listening. They're helping us get this developed into the system. So that's a really huge feature.
And that brings up another key point, is when you're looking as a decision maker, when you're looking at a software, there's really two basic types of software. There's your out-of-the-box software and there's your custom software. Okay. Now, Populi, we're trying to kind of meet in the middle there. We're an out-of-the-box software. Okay. So you remember back in the 90s, you bought Windows 95 as is. You couldn't go into the back end and change everything. It was what you see is what you get. You can't go in and customize it. Now, many of our small schools 90% of them don't have the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, who could go in and make those changes anyways. So most of our clients, it's right in our wheelhouse to sell them an out-of-the-box software. Now, with that said, whenever somebody wants a change, they want a customization, we have to tell them, look, if we make a change for you, it makes a change for everybody else, because what works in Populi with one school, it's going to be the same thing for all the rest of our client schools. And so we have to take that into account when we make changes. Yeah. So sometimes changes don't happen immediately because we have to follow the 80-20 rule. Is this going to be good for 80% of our clients or not? So we have to consider that, because Populi is not a fully customizable system.
Right.
So as you're looking at softwares, do you want a customizable system? Well, if you do, you better have the CTO who can handle that. And you better be prepared for lots of changes of workflows over the years. You know, if you want your admissions workflow to change from year to year, month to month, if you want your registration workflow to change for your students from year to year, semester to semester, that's what you're going to get typically with a customizable software. The out-of-the-box softwares are going to say, here's your set process. You're going to have to accommodate yourself somewhat to that. So with Populi, there's kind of a meet in the middle sort of an idea where we're going to accommodate to a certain amount, but then you're going to also have to accommodate some of your workflows and change some of those. And so whether you're looking at Populi or some of our other competitors or whatever softwares that are out there, just know you need to ask them up front, is this customizable? How much is customizable? Now, you can customize some of the things in our software, but you're just adding fields, you're adding data sets. You're not going and customizing the logical flow or the logical order of the system, okay, with the out-of-the-box softwares. So again, kind of big picture here for all you decision makers, are you looking at out-of-the-box or are you looking at custom softwares? And for most of the small schools, out-of-the-box makes the most sense, because you're going to lose so many man hours from your CTO who's going to be messing with your custom software that it's just, that I've seen in the past, it's just not worth it. Okay, you're going to ask them to do a project for you. You may say, well, I can't do that because I'm working on this custom side to our custom software. And it just takes up all their time working on that custom side of things. Is that helpful?
That's great. And if you're okay with it, I'm going to show, we did just a quick orientation of our curriculum in Moodle, Canvas, and Populi, which are three of the LMSs that we normally work in. And I'm gonna put on the section of Populi if you're okay with that.
As long as it's from the demo site and not from a client's.
It is from our demo site, yes.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. So yeah, HIPAA and FERPA.
Right. Okay, so let me share that part of the screen here.
Go for it.
Let me switch over to another one, and that's Populi. Populi's format, if you're familiar with them, they have much of the same structure throughout their courses. Our course content is still, you can see it's looking at the same types of things. It still has all that information in there, grading scale, that sort of thing, policies, program framework. Just like in the Moodle version, they're going to kick over to workshop 1, all that sort of thing. And then they will have their content for discussions, assignments, all over on the side. So you can see all the discussion questions, you can see the assignments that are all listed out there, and similar process. All that stuff would be separate from the course content that you would find in the InterLearn version 2 of the curriculum. All that course content will still look the same, just a little bit different in Populi and how it works for that. And then lastly, so you can see that format, like our curriculum works in Populi as well. And I think there was some iframe setup. I haven't been real involved in that portion of it, but they worked real well with the Populi team to get that, making sure that it's set up correctly in there and working effectively. So good stuff. Well, Nick, thank you very much for your time today and for your willingness to share some of those points of expertise, because that's great information as people are looking at their data management systems, et cetera. So thanks for being here today.
You bet.
Yeah.
And do you want me to reiterate those 5 points one
Go
more
right
time?
ahead. That'd be great. That'd be
Someone
great.
came in late. Okay. So again, 5 things to look for as you as a decision maker consider making a software transition. Number 1, do they list their pricing up front? Are they transparent about their pricing? Okay, that's number 1. Or are they going to charge you all kinds of little fees for this, that, and the other thing? So that would be one thing to look for, is upfront pricing, transparency in pricing. Number 2, do they have a demo site for you to use? Okay. Will they create a testing site for you? Like we've given to Josh his own site that he can use to try out Populi and to make things work, for his side of things. So a demo site would be number 2. What is their support like? That's number 3, support. Can you get a hold of references? Can the references speak to the support? Every school is different. So if a reference says, we don't like the interface that much, but the support's great, that would be a key thing. Okay. Because, every school is different, and maybe the registrar doesn't like the colors. I don't know, but really support is the important thing there when you're talking to other schools and references. Number 4, how do they handle data migration? Either coming from your old system, how's that data migration handled? Or if you ever decide to leave them, what's their data migration? Are they going to charge you for taking your data out of their system? That sort of thing. So data migration is a big one as well. That's number 4. And then number 5, do they have an API? That's that data bridge that allows you to connect to other softwares. Is it a one-way data API, or is it a two-way API? Can I only pull data out of it into other softwares, or can I pull data out and then bring data in from other softwares? Is it a two-way API? That would be the 5th big picture sort of thing that I would mention. So as you go out and look at different softwares, of course, we want you to look at Populi. I'd love to have you get in touch with me. But whether you look at us or not, those are 5 things that you really need to consider as you talk to these different software companies. So Josh, thank you very much for letting me join you.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate it. Good information.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.